June the 9th, and I hope this episode finds you with beautiful clarity about where you are, where you've been, and where you're going. I hope that you have optimism around the journey ahead and full confidence that just as you've learned along this journey thus far, you will continue to learn. You will continue to meet everything you need on the journey ahead, all the people, all the resources, all of the experiences that shape you. And that you're happy to be part of this community. Today, I want to talk about cash burn. Cash burn is a very important concept to have a good handle around as a business leader. It will help you establish a healthy pace for your company, because when you're in the seat that you're sitting in, and I'm talking to entrepreneurs, whether you are running a fintech, whether you're running a restaurant, whatever it may be, right? You are in a position of setting the pace and the tone for your business. It is not your investor. It is not the Instagram influencer. It is you, right? And cash burn is going to be one of the coldest tools you have in your arsenal to really establish that pacing and have really good reasoning behind it, okay? So to start, understand that cash burn is a measure of how fast you are spending money. Okay, cash burn is simply how fast you are spending your money. And it can be articulated in two ways. The first way to articulate cash burn is gross burn, right? Your gross burn is a sum of all of the expenses that you spend for your business each month. And you should know what this number is, okay? I talk to founders on a daily basis, and there are so many founders who do not even know how much they're spending in their business each month. And that is a problem. So know that number. Okay. And if you haven't done it recently, I want you to sit and add up, okay, all of the expenses that are coming out of your accounts each month. Okay. So that's the first measure of cash burn, the gross burn. But then you also can measure cash burn as net burn. And net burn is simply the sum of all of the expenses for your business each month minus the revenue, because you can assume that the revenue that comes in will cover, right, some of those expenses, or all of those expenses, or more than the expenses, right? But whatever that is, you need to know what that is, right? So your net burn is the total expenses for your company minus the revenue that has come in, right? And whatever is left is your net burn. So let's say a person is running a restaurant, okay? And let's say each month they're spending $10,000 across the space that they're leasing, across the employees that they've hired, across any electricity or utility bills, across the food and the supplies they're using, $10,000 per month. Okay, that is their gross burn. They know that number. It is important that they know that number. Okay, and then let's say the revenue that comes in per month is $7,000. I'll ask you, what is their net burn then? Yes, it is $3,000. Their net burn on a monthly basis is $3,000, meaning their expenses right now are $10,000 per month. Their revenue that comes in is $7,000 per month. And so on a monthly basis, their net burn is $3,000. Right? And you might say, well, where does the $3,000 come from? Typically, it's coming from liquidity. Right? So maybe this restaurant owner has savings, but understanding what the net burn is helps them understand how long that liquidity, those savings can last. Y'all see where I'm going? It's not they're waking up one day, okay, looking at the account and seeing what's left and like, oh, okay, and the next day they're doing it again. No, like we actually know. We can know on day one, right, how long that savings balance can last based on our net burn. Okay, so we have those two concepts, right, which are sub-concepts to cash burn. We know how to calculate gross burn, we know how to calculate net burn, and we understand that having those figures help us to understand how long our cash will last, and that has a term too, and that is called your burn rate. Your burn rate is a measure of how long your cash will last. It lets you know how much runway you have. Is it a long road ahead based on your cash burn rate? Do you have a very short runway ahead and you're about to fall off the cliff based on the amount of savings you have and the net burn that your business has each month? Okay, and so you should know what your burn rate is. Your burn rate is how fast you are running through your money, okay? How fast you're burning through your cash, your savings, right? And you should always understand how many months are left. And so let's say a person has a savings account of $30,000, right? A savings account balance of $30,000, right? Well, for this person, if their net burn is $3,000 per month, right? Then that means that they have 10 months of runway. Because 3,000 times 10 is 30,000. And that means that in 10 months, they are going to be out of cash, even though they're making $7,000 per month. Because their net burn is 3,000, they're only going to make it another 10 months with the liquidity that they have saved. There is not enough excess revenue to add to the savings. You're actually burning through your savings. Does that make sense? And their burn rate is $3,000 per month, which means, be with me now, if today they're at $30,000 in their savings, it probably means that 2 months ago they had $36,000. Why? Because they're burning an extra $3,000 every single month. So 2 months ago they probably had $36,000. 3 months ago they probably had $39,000. Right? There's a relationship in this thing, and they only have 10 months left before they burnt through all of their cash. Understanding your burn rate is so important because it helps you understand how long you have to raise external funding if that is your strategy for buying yourself more time. Knowing that you have 10 months of cash left today is so much better than finding that out in 8 months, because you have time to research in the market and decide what type of funding you want. Some funding has no cost associated with it. Maybe that's crowdfunding and grants. Some funding has nominal costs associated with it, meaning a small cost associated with it. Maybe that is your traditional commercial debt, right? Where you have good credit, you have a good history and a good relationship with that bank, right? Some capital has a higher trade-off. Maybe it's venture capital and they need you to 7x your revenue in a short amount of time to give them a big payoff, right? But maybe that's worth it to you, right? Because you're not making monthly payments like you would have been making if you had gotten commercial debt, right? And there's so many options out there, right? But knowing that 10 months out is better than knowing it 2 months out. Knowing it 2 years out is even better, right? Because you have time to build relationship, right? And craft strategy and really be in the driver's seat, right? Of how you raise that incremental cash to make sure you last another 2 years, right? So burn rate is very, very important. And it really puts you in, I'd say, a healthy position of negotiating and strategizing when you're not desperate. Whenever you're desperate and you're looking for cash, you are going to accept higher interest rates, meaning more expensive debt. You are going to get into terms that do not feel good 3 months down the road, right? That are kind of strangling you. And you're going to make poor decisions. But knowing your cash burn, understanding how much runway you have ahead of you and making sure that you have enough runway ahead of you, even before you start making plans around your next raise, it really does help you make well-informed, sound decisions. Now, let's talk about 3 ways that you can reduce your burn, okay? So 3 ways to achieve burn reduction. Number 1 is to cut the expenses that are not creating value inside of your business. And there are some. Okay, in 2024, I did this exercise and I was able to cut over $8,000 in unnecessary expenses per year, which is about a little over $700,000 per month. Okay, I was able to just wipe it out. So these could be across subscriptions. Maybe you've been paying monthly for something you haven't touched in 12 months, right? And so it is clearly not mission critical to your business. It is clearly not making or breaking the business. So maybe you can just eliminate that, right? Maybe it's some software. Maybe you bought some software because at a particular point in your business, you were using that thing, and so the annual payments made sense. But maybe it doesn't anymore, right? So you could revisit that, go through your bank statement, and really look at the cost, the charges you've been getting in the last 12 months, and ask yourself, do I need this? Do I need to pay for this annual subscription again? Right? Or this, do I need to renew this contract again? And then on the contractor side, is the same way, right? If you are paying for contractors that are no longer being heavily utilized in your business, that are, still hanging around after the relevant contract they were working on, right? Maybe you had a client, right, project or something, but that contract or that project has gone away, but you still have the contractor. There's so many instances, right, of us having heavy overhead that is unwarranted for the revenue we're making in our business or the obligations and demands that we have in our business. And you can end those contracts, right? And the sound that you do so that you reduce your burn rate and go at a very healthy pace that makes sense inside of your business, especially if you are burning through your liquidity, burning through your savings, and you do not have much time left. Okay. Number 2, a way you can reduce your burn is by selling more high margin offers, right? So maybe you were thinking, oh, well, I just need to increase my revenue, so I need to sell more. It is not enough to just sell more, right? Because if you're selling things that don't really give you as much profitability as some of the other offers, your liquidity doesn't increase, right? For instance, maybe you offer consulting and it's only 15% of costs associated with that. Right? Only 15% goes out of the door every time you make a sale. But let's say you sell journals as well, and 60% goes out of the door. Right? The paper, the notebook, the printing, the shipment, whatever. Right? 60% is gone, so only 40% of that sale comes into the business. Well, don't just sell more offers, sell more high margin offers. Higher margins mean that you keep a lot more of that revenue, that cash inside of your business. More can flow down to your savings, your liquidity, and be strategic in that way, right? If you find yourself needing to reduce your cash burn, okay? Because growing your pot of liquidity means that you have more time. If you grow that pot from 30,000 today to 33,000 simply by making an extra sale on a high margin product, then you have 11 months left and not 10, right? And then number 3, so that will give you 3 tips to reduce your cash burn. Number 3 is to negotiate your terms, okay? Renegotiate your terms. It's a healthy practice. Sometimes we forget that there are people on the other side of these brands and logos. Just like there's a person inside of your business, right, with a brain and a heart and things that make you laugh and all of these things, that is true for the branded logo that you partner with, right, that you're doing business with. And so talk to them, see if you can renegotiate your payment terms, right? Can you get more time, right? Maybe you're not paying every 30 days. Maybe you're paying every 60 days, whatever. Maybe you're paying annually, right? So that you get to a horizon, a point in time where you actually are making a lot more revenue anyway, right? Maybe you can renegotiate the price itself. Maybe you can negotiate it down, right? You can ask the question, what do I need to do to get this price per unit down to X dollars? Right? And let them tell you. Maybe they're saying increase your minimum order quantity, right? Maybe they're telling you if you buy these SKUs and not these SKUs, whatever, but have that conversation, right? Nurture that relationship so that you really get more favorable terms, which directly impacts your cash burn. You want to reduce your cash burn. When you reduce your cash burn, You are eating away at your liquidity slower. You are adding more runway, adding more time in front of you, right? And you are establishing a healthy pace for your business. You are not going so fast that you run out of runway and you fall off of a cliff. Okay? You want these things to be in sync. And I want you to focus on 2 KPIs inside of your business, right, as you think about cash burn. So KPIs are key performance indicators. These are the numeric values that you should know, that your team should know, that you all should follow to make sure that you are at a healthy point in your business. Whenever you fall outside of the parameters for your key KPIs, you know that something is out of whack and you really need to address that. That needs to be a priority. So 2 KPIs I want you to focus on. KPI number 1 is your minimum cash position, which is essentially your minimum cash balance. That is that liquidity number I've been talking to you about, right? You need to have a minimum cash position, and let there be a rhyme or reason to it, right? Do you want your minimum cash position to always have at least 3 months of cash burn inside of it, which is 90 days? So that even if the revenue doesn't cover it, you know that you have 3 months to figure it out. Do you want it to be 12 months? Right? So that's your net burn times 12. That needs to be your minimum cash position, because you know that even if you all mess up customer orders and you give a bunch of refunds back, you have 12 months to get back in sync. Even if something horrible happens and you miss, out on a client, they're not going to renew, right? And that falls off a cliff. You know that your minimum cash position gives you X number of months, whatever. Right? But know what your minimum cash balance needs to be to give yourself the runway that is healthy for you, for your mind, for your psyche, right? For your business, for your relationships, so that you are not moving out of desperation, so that you have time to put together a well thought out, a well crafted plan for contingency. Whether that's raising through crowdfunding, right? Whether that is raising through angel investors, raising through commercial debt where you have to pay back every single month, raising through venture capital, whatever. When you have a healthy cash position where you decided what that minimum cash position is, you know how long you have to make that deal occur, right? To bring in that external revenue. If you are trying to do it on the fly, in very short order, you are more likely to have expensive debt and have terms that are not favorable to you and be in a miserable position in 3 months. Okay? And then the second KPI I want you to focus on is your sales target, right? Or your revenue target. Pick one, whatever, right? But you need to know what your minimum sales target is every month. Your team needs to know this so that y'all are hitting that, so that your net burn is predictable. It should not be willy-nilly. Like, oh, next month I might make 6,000. The month after that I might make 4, and then I might make 11. That is all over the place, right? When you know what your sales target is, it is very clear on the minimum that must be hit. Your net burn is very, very clear, because you know how much revenue is going to be netted against your gross burn. And then you know your cash burn rate very clearly, because you know you'll be able to calculate how many months you have to keep going based on that net burn every month, based on that minimum cash balance that you're holding. Okay? It all works together. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you've taken a ton of notes. And if you're listening inside the Blaze Group app, which you can every single week, or on any streaming platform you want, but if you're listening inside the Blaze Group app, I want you to go ahead and update the journal prompt for today, just to jot down what this is jogged for you in your mind, right? What were the aha moments? What are the things you know you want to follow up on or research more deeply or talk to your team about, right? Get that out. It'll always be there. You can update your notes anytime. And I want you to check out our new KPI tab inside of the app just for you, okay? Where you can actually update your minimum cash position, what you need that to be today. You can put in notes, you can put in pictures, whatever you want, right? You can come back to this again and again. And I want you to update your cash burn number, right? What is it today? You need to know that number. The beautiful thing about our KPI tab is that you can update this again and again. So through time, you can actually see a graph of how things have changed, right? It'll help you get a feel of seasonality as well, right? Maybe you'll notice some some patterns in the data that you're tracking. Maybe you'll notice some patterns in some of your notes, right? And how you're feeling and what behaviors or what cycles have led to similar outcomes. All there for you because we love you, because we believe in you, and because we want you to build something that outlasts you. Right? The village can pick up and keep the baton going on. That's all for today. Until next week, love and light.